Ladies and gentlemen, may I have a very warm welcome for DotNetNuke's Chief Marketing Officer, Mitch Bishop.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Nice catch. Oh, he didn't catch it. Sorry. Pass it back. No. You can shoot that at me later if I say something that I shouldn't. But good morning, everybody. That was weak. Good morning. Thank you. Very excited to be here. Recently with the company, and this is my first DotNetNuke World. But very excited to let everybody know that we have 400 people in the audience today. So congratulations. Previously, this conference used to be held with Dev Connections. And that was great, but this is the first year that we've decided to do it on our own, and we're really, really excited and pleased with the outcome. In fact, we sold out. So we actually kind of pissed off the hotel because we kept calling them back asking for more space, and this is it. So I'm also really, really excited to let everybody know that we have over 1,000 people live right now on simulcast around the world. So. I wanted to ask a couple questions of the folks here. So could we have the house lights up for a second? So just by show of hands, how many people here are Community Edition users? Wow. Okay, well, that was my only question then. No. How many people are Commercial Edition users? Well, that's good. Okay. We're going to have a volleyball match later. How many people here are absolutely new to DotNetNuke and haven't started using the product yet? Great. How many people here attended the training yesterday, training in the workshops? Wow, that's great. Big shout out to Chris, Ian, Dang, and Eric. I talked to a lot of folks last night and I heard really great things about the training. Just another question. How many people here are developers? Designers? Business folks? Business people? Oh, that's really good. That's interesting. Final question. Boxers or briefs? Two hands. Okay, well, that sounds like a personal problem to me, but great. So lights down again. Welcome, everybody. Thanks very much for taking the time out of your schedule and coming down to DotNetNuke World. I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible. This conference, we want to make it as much about education and about sharing of best practices and lessons learned and connecting with your fellow DotNetNuke folks. So I know that for many of you, this is your first DotNetNuke World conference. We're going to make these better and better. We're going to be asking you for feedback throughout. Please give us that feedback so that next year we can make it even better. Clicker. Where's my clicker? There it is. We have a great set of content over the next 2 days for you. It's packed, scheduled. There's three tracks going on. I did want to point out that tomorrow morning we're very pleased to have Cliff Reeves from Microsoft here giving a keynote, so don't miss that. We also have our CEO, Naveen Nagia, at 11. I've seen his slides. I think they're pretty good, and you don't want to miss that as well. Really packed agenda. We've tried to build into the sessions a time for Q&A, so take advantage of that to connect with the speakers. This is the hashtag. I've seen that a lot of you are already using it. So if you're into tweeting, this is the hashtag. And then I wanted to also point out that thanks to our friends at R2 Integrated, they once again have built and provided a Smash site, which is a social media mashup site. It's going to, and you see it here. It's really just all about accumulating and aggregating all the social media activity that's going on at this moment. So by all means visit the Smash site, and I think they've got a big monitor up and back. And we couldn't put on this conference without our sponsors, for sure. We just physically couldn't do it. So I wanted to thank our sponsors, starting with Microsoft, our Diamond sponsor, our Platinum sponsors, and so on. And you'll see their logos. They all have booths out there. Please visit their booths. They've got promotions running. In fact, I wanted to just tell you about a couple of promotions that are running on site here. First of all, DotNetNuke is running a promotion. Any CE user that wants to buy training, we're offering that at 50% off. So go see the folks at our booth. Applied Innovation is offering 6 months of free hosting. DataSprings, 30% off to all show attendees of any of their products. We have a new partner here, Brilliant Solutions, that's built an integration to ASP.NET Storefront. They're offering a promotion on that. It's called Ernesto Nuke. We have a new partner, Titan SEO. They do a lot of great SEO work, and they're offering a free on-site assessment of your website. So go see them at their booth. And last but not least, PowerDNN is offering 1 year of free hosting. So go see the folks at PowerDNN. They've been known to host a few websites or two. So with that, I would like to, at this point, bring up our featured speaker for this morning. Shaun, I think a lot of you already know, but Shaun is the reason we're all here. I was just talking to him on the side there, and I said, "Can you believe what you started?" And he said, "No." But Shaun is our CTO and co-founder, and he's got a great presentation this morning about the road ahead from a product point of view. Shaun Walker.
Great music. Good morning, Orlando. Welcome to .NETNuke World 2011. It's a pretty exciting event to see so many people here. This is by far the largest audience that we've ever had for a .NETNuke event. With 400 people here in attendance and 1,000 people online, that's huge numbers. And if I can take a minute just to do a very quick survey as well. Mitch asked a lot of questions with his survey, but I have a few extra questions. So we had our very first .NETNuke conference in 2007. It was in Las Vegas. It was partnered with Dev Connections. It was called Open Force. How many people here, by a show of hands, were at that very first conference? Wow, not very many. So maybe 1/10 of the people here. So how many people here today are attending their very first .NETNuke conference? That's a lot. That's probably 80%. So that's a lot. We really appreciate you coming out to conferences. We understand that with the economic times that we've had over the last few years, conferences have been more difficult to attend, and so your support in coming here is very much appreciated. So with that, let's get started. So what is .NETNuke? When we think about .NETNuke, we think that it's essentially three things. First, it's the #1 web content management system for the Microsoft platform. Second thing is it's the largest open source project that's native to the Microsoft platform as well. And third, it's a platform with a lot of extensions, both free and commercial. And in fact, we have a marketplace with more than 10,000 apps in that marketplace. So with these three things that we're essentially a market leader in, we felt it was time to do some work on our mission statement. So I'm going to share our new mission statement with you today. We make web interactions insanely easy, affordable, and productive for organizations worldwide. This is a much broader mission statement than we had previously. And if we dig into it a little bit, what does insanely easy mean? It means it's very easy to install the software, very easy to interact with the software. What does it mean by the word affordable? It means that we're providing great value for every dollar that you spend on our solution. And what does it mean by productive? It means that we want to make your jobs more efficient and easy using our tools in terms of how you incorporate those into your business. So let's talk about the year in review. So I'm a pretty big Boston Bruins fan, so I'm pretty proud that they won the Stanley Cup this year. But what's the relevance of this picture? So I was born in 1971. The Boston Bruins won the Stanley Cup the last time in 1972. So it's been 39 years since they won the Stanley Cup. And so being a fan of a sports team, you have to have a lot of faith and perseverance and loyalty to stick with a team for that long until they actually reach some level of success. I draw some parallels between what the Boston Bruins did and what we're doing with DotNetNuke. DotNetNuke was originally launched December 24th, 2002. We're coming up on 9 years, and so it's been a long journey for me in terms of when I originally released the software and where we are today. We've achieved a lot of success over that time, but I believe that where we are today, we are so perfectly positioned for the growth that we're going to have in the years ahead, and I'm more excited than I've ever been about the potential for this platform, and I hope that comes across in my slides as we go forward. So other sort of aspects of the year in review. In terms of downloads, we had 750,000 downloads in 2011. This is far ahead of what we saw in 2010. Largely this can be attributed to the DotNetNuke 6 release that happened this summer. There's been a large sort of resurgence in interest in the platform, which drove our download numbers up, and that brings us up to about 7 million downloads all time. In terms of installations, we estimate that there's about 700,000 production websites running .NETNuke today in the world. If we look at some of the recognition that we've got over the last year, we had a lot of awards that we won in 2010, but in 2011, we were lucky enough to receive some more notable awards. Two I want to point out are in regards to the Inc. 500 and Gartner. The Inc. 500 is a measurement of the fastest growing companies in North America. It's based on annual revenue over the last 3 years. So based on the traction that .NETNuke Corp has received in the last 3 years, we reached number 228 on the Inc. 500 this year, which is a pretty amazing achievement for such a young company. On the Gartner side, last year we were recognized as a Gartner Cool vendor, which meant that we had demonstrated some level of innovation and some level of potential for the future. This year we actually made a Gartner Magic Quadrant for the first time ever, Gartner, for those of you who are maybe not as familiar, Gartner is one of the most reputable analyst firms for technology solutions. Large enterprise organizations rely on Gartner for advice and guidance in terms of where to make their next investment around technology. And so being included on a Magic Quadrant is good for us as a company, but also good for you in terms of your partner opportunities, being a customer, many things. Gartner is an important award for us this year. In terms of user conferences, we had a Day of .NETNuke event in June. That was in Nova Scotia, in my home country, Canada. Unfortunately, I didn't go because I was actually at the Hamburg event in Germany, which was Web Connections, which was our European conference this year in June, which was a great event as well, hosted by and organized by community members. And obviously we have DotNetNuke World, and I'm really glad that we're all here today. Another thing I need to point out on the business front is earlier this year, I guess it was in February, we made the announcement that we had acquired Active Modules. Active Modules is one of the premier providers of social collaboration software for the .NETNuke platform. And by acquiring this IP, we thought that we could really improve our platform by including a lot more social functionality into the platform going forward. As part of this acquisition, Will Morganwick, the owner and founder of Active Modules, also joined the company. He joined our company as part of the product management team, and recently I'm really proud to say that Will was promoted to Director of Product Management. So kudos to Will. Also joining the company was Ben Nelson, and he joined our support team. So we added a few great people as part of that acquisition, in addition to the IP that we got as well. So in terms of product releases, last year at the .NETNuke conference, I talked about our release cadence. In 2010, we had 4 major releases. So we did quarterly releases, and we had maintenance releases every month. The feedback from our customer base was that was a lot of releases, and that was really difficult to keep up with. And so we promised for 2011 that we were going to reduce our release schedule, include more functionality and value into every release, but make it easier or lessen the burden in terms of an IT management perspective. And so we promised to do 2 major releases this year and minor releases every 2 months. And I'm really happy to say that's exactly what we did. So we did have 2 major releases this year, and we had 6 minor releases. Obviously, the major releases this year were major. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why they were major in a minute. So DotNetNuke 6. So last year at the conference, the big impact statement was that we were going to embark on a journey to revolutionize the platform. That journey involved a lot of changes to the platform, and they were going to be culminated in a new major version number, DotNetNuke 6. Essentially, at the end of that process, we wanted to be seen as the next generation web content management platform for Microsoft.NET. So, some of the themes that we wanted to incorporate into the DotNetNuke 6 product were around a terminology CMS. So, C meaning cloud deployment. So, infrastructure as a service, I think, has been talked about a lot in recent years. And it's definitely a trend that is here to stay. We see more and more businesses wanting to, move boxes out of their own infrastructure and take advantage of the cloud. We see this as a very sort of pervasive trend that's going to continue in the years to come, and a trend that is very applicable to .NET Obviously, we're a web-based application. We need to run on suitable infrastructure in the cloud. The other, another of the trends that we saw was around mobile. With the number of mobile devices that are in the world today, more and more people are visiting your website on a mobile device, and they want to get the best experience possible. So we saw this emerging trend a year ago, and we thought this is something that we need to provide solutions for, because there's very few solutions that work effectively today, and it needs to be incorporated in our content management platform. And lastly, social. Social began in the consumer world, and it's very heavily come over to the business world now. More and more businesses want to be able to take advantage of this rich social interactions that can happen online, and then provide better communication, better efficiency within their business. So conveniently, cloud mobile social, CMS, is the space we're in as far as content management. And so we thought that this was a really nice hook for us as well, as far as a general theme for the .NET 6 release. I shared this slide last year, which seemed to have some pretty good impact in terms of visualizing this whole notion of cloud, mobile, and social. So today we still have a lot of traditional devices out there, like desktops and laptops. And if you're building a website and you want to make that website discoverable and noticeable online so that customers can find you, you do need to cater to the open web, and you do need to provide great content for search engines so that people can find you. But the world has changed, so search engines aren't the only way that people discover you nowadays. So we now have social networks with hundreds of millions of users, which are basically like mini internets within the broad internet, and they have huge user bases, and you want to be able to get your content out to those social channels as well. The next thing is mobile devices. So we have some very large mobile platforms now. We have a ton of devices out there, and those folks are looking for content as well. And so they want to get access to your website content through their device, and they want to get it in an experience that actually makes sense for that device. And lastly, you want to be able to scale your business to accommodate whatever demand comes its way, and so we need to take advantage of the cloud. This is a fairly sophisticated diagram, but it's really represents sort of the world we live in today when you're building a website. And so from our perspective, these are the types of tools that we need to be looking to provide to you as the years go forward. So the .NET 6 goal is to be the world's foremost web platform for easily creating modern, easily customizable, social and mobile enabled, feature-rich websites. And so our focus in .NET 6 was on 5 key areas: user experience, on-demand and cloud deployment, performance and scalability, social and mobile enablement, and enterprise acceptance. And so when we embarked on this journey for .NET 6, it wasn't intended to be one release. It was intended to be a series of releases that introduced new functionality in various areas that were in line with the themes that we had talked about. So if we look at .NET 6, it was released on July 20th, 2011. We had a longer release cycle than we had typically had in the past, but we had a lot to accomplish. So the theme for .NET 6.0 was user experience. User experience was probably the one area that we were criticized the most in recent years based on the fact that we weren't exemplifying modern, contemporary, web user interface design standards. So we made some great advancements in DotNetNuke 6 when it comes to the user interface. We introduced a lot of functionality in this area. We took advantage of a lot of rich client-side capabilities to make it much easier to interact with the software. If we take a look at a screenshot of a default install of Community Edition for DotNetNuke 6.0, we can see things like the Manage button, which made it a lot simpler. This doesn't have a pointer. To interact with the software, we have our action menu. Keep going, we have our control panel that stays resident up at the top of the screen and provides access to all the functions in a really simple manner. And it stays fixed at the top of the screen and doesn't scroll off the screen. There was so many improvements that we made in DotNetNuke 6. And how many people here have tried DotNetNuke 6? Show of hands. Almost everyone. That's good. So the next area that we focused on in .NET 6 was our extensions catalog. And so this was in line with our theme around on-demand. So when we acquired Snow Covered, the marketplace, a couple of years ago, the goal was always to provide a much better experience than just having siloed properties, Snow Covered and then your CMS application. We wanted to tie those two together to provide some of that rich integration that you get between things like the iPhone and the App Store, the Android and the Android Marketplace. We obviously had thousands of apps already available in Snow Covered, so we needed to provide that integration. And so the extension catalog provided that, allows you to view products from various catalogs. The Forge and Snow Covered are both represented in the extension feed. You can search them, you can filter them, and then it allows you a very simple mechanism to download directly to your server and install them. Whereas in the past it was a bit of a cumbersome process where you had to download to your local system and then upload. So this was a much better integrated feature than we'd had in the past, and we can go much further here, and we will go much further. C# is an interesting topic. You can tell that there's a few developers here. Okay, so last year at the conference, we wound up with a closing panel. One of the questions that was asked during the closing panel is if we were ever going to consider migrating the platform to C#. Interestingly enough, about a year before the conference last year, a developer from China named Ben Zhang had converted .NET the Visual Basic version, to C#. And he had posted it, and then we had collaborated with him to make that version available, just to gauge the reaction and gauge how many people would be interested in that type of a source package. It turned out that there was a lot of demand for it. And so following the conference, there was a lot of internal discussion about whether or not this was the appropriate time to make this transition to C#. And there were so many reasons that pushed us in this direction around the fact that C# has really become the dominant language for developers in the Microsoft space. All of the code samples and documentation seem to favor C#. So there are many reasons why it made a lot of sense to move to C#. Not to mention .NET 6 was a perfect opportunity because we wanted to revolutionize the platform. So revolutionizing it at the top end in terms of the user interface was one thing, but also tackling the bottom end through the source code base was a second area. And that transition occurred very seamlessly. There was a lot of work involved in making it happen. But I think the interesting thing is that the fact that there was really not much tension with the community about this change meant that it was absolutely the right thing for us to do. And so going forward, obviously C# is our focus as a primary language. Integration with cloud services. So in .NET 6, we wanted to make sure that you could deploy the CMS to a variety of different cloud platforms. We had already been able or successful in deploying .NET to Amazon EC2 in the past, or Rackspace Cloud, and Windows Azure in its early stages presented some challenges because it was more of a platform as a service offering. But we did some work in the .NET 6 timeframe which allowed us to deploy .NET onto Windows Azure. Specifically, this was around our SQL installation scripts so that it was compatible with SQL Azure. And so when we shipped .NET 6.0, we were able to deploy on Windows Azure. And in fact, a community member who's actually here at the conference this week, has done a lot of work around a Windows Azure accelerator for .NET Nuke. There's been a lot of versions that he's pushed out as Windows Azure has evolved, and I would encourage you to take a look at that because that's an interesting new opportunity going forward. Other cloud integration opportunities that we took advantage of, we've always had the ability to upload digital assets in terms of documents and files, different types of media files to .NETNuke, but we always only had the capability to store those locally or in the database. But we introduced a new folder provider in .NETNuke 6.0, which allowed us to abstract the storage that you were using for storing these types of assets. In .NETNuke Professional Edition, we introduced two folder providers, one for Amazon S3 and one for Windows Azure. So basically, you could take advantage of cloud storage capabilities to store documents off of your website. And this was done in a very extensible way as well, so that you could build other types of folder providers so that you could take advantage of other cloud storage capabilities or even store things within your infrastructure in very interesting ways. Another area that we tackled in .NETNuke 6.0 was in the area of e-commerce. So we recognize that a lot of our more serious users are taking advantage of e-commerce on their website. There is a number of e-commerce modules that are available on Snow Covered and even in the Forge. But we thought that it was useful for us to provide an e-commerce capability in the box in .NETNuke Professional Edition. So as part of the Active Modules acquisition, there was a product called Active Purchase, which Will Morganwick had developed. And he had done a lot of work on it just prior to the acquisition, and we thought it was a perfect opportunity for us to integrate that into the .NETNuke Professional Edition as our premier commerce module. And that module provides a lot of e-commerce capability around order management, around customer management, tax, shipping, tons of options in there. I would encourage you to take a look at that if you're using .NETNuke Professional Edition. The last area that we wanted to tackle was in regards to the Enterprise Edition. So we had introduced the Enterprise Edition in the middle of 2010 with our content staging capability. And we wanted to bolster that with further functionality that was more applicable to an enterprise audience. So the SharePoint connector was built on the premise that a lot of companies, larger companies, are using SharePoint as a standard repository internally to store documents. And many of those organizations want to be able to publish those documents outside their firewall onto a public website. This seems like a perfect opportunity for integration with .NETNuke. And so what we did is we built a SharePoint job, which allows you to push documents and synchronize them from inside your firewall to your .NETNuke site, where then you can provide secure access to those documents through the .NETNuke system itself. So we accomplished a lot in .NETNuke 6.0. It was a long release cycle, a lot of work went into it, but the results were amazing, to be honest. The amount of downloads and the amount of hype that occurred after the release of .NETNuke 6 was amazing, and I think it truly was a revolutionary step in terms of the platform moving forward. Obviously, that was only the first step in terms of the .NETNuke 6 line. There was other things that we wanted to tackle as well as we went forward, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those. So .NETNuke 6.1 was the next release. This was actually a release that just came out last week. The theme for .NETNuke 6.1 was around mobile. So in keeping with the theme of cloud, mobile, and social, we wanted to tackle mobile next. So the theme around .NETNuke 6.1 was simplifying the delivery of mobile websites. And we accomplished this in a variety of ways. So when we started looking at mobile, there was a couple different tracks that we could take. We looked at the opportunity of building tools that would allow you to build native mobile applications. And then we also looked at the concept of building mobile websites. For the types of customers that we engage with, which is more the mid-market type of enterprise customers, those folks really don't have the budget or the capabilities to build native mobile applications for every single mobile platform. That's a lot of work, a lot of maintenance, and it costs a lot of money. What made a lot more sense to those folks is building mobile websites, which could be consumed by any mobile device. And so that's the approach we took with .NETNuke 6.1. We introduced some interesting capabilities there. At the most basic level, it's basically the ability to detect a mobile device when it comes to your desktop site and then redirect that device to a more optimal experience. That experience could be a specific landing page on your website, it could be a separate DotNetNuke website, or it could be even a different website that's developed using some other mobile website creation tool. So this capability is something that is becoming more and more requested in the market. Companies of all sizes know that there's a lot of traffic coming to their sites that are on mobile devices, and they know that the experience that those folks are getting when they're getting the desktop type of content isn't optimal. And so they want to be able to create a more optimized experience for mobile devices. We also introduced a content previewer, which is a pretty interesting little technique in .NET 6.1. We have a database of pretty much all of the major mobile devices that exist today, both mobile phones and tablets. And we have a device characteristics for all of these. And so even if you don't have physical access to all of these different devices, on .NET 6.1 you can view your mobile website using an iframe which sort of simulates the size characteristics of the different devices so that you can see how a user who's interacting with your site on the various devices would view your site. Which is an interesting testing tool. It can be quite powerful, and I'm going to do a demo at the conclusion of my keynote here, which demonstrates some of these capabilities, so you can see it actually in person. So some other mobile capabilities we introduced are, .NET always had this multi-site capability. Some people refer to it as multi-portal. So you can run multiple websites from a single install of .NET, which seems like a perfect opportunity for you to have a desktop site and a mobile website. So we created a mobile website template so that when you create a new site in .NET, you can choose the mobile template, and it creates a website with some interesting design characteristics to it. It takes advantage of a lot of the more modern capabilities around HTML5 and CSS. It does adaptive rendering to adapt to the display surface of a particular device, and I'll show a little bit of that in the demo as we go forward. The last area in .NET 6.1 that we tackled was a feature that had been requested for many years as well. And again, it's related to our multi-site capability. So if you have a company that has many departments, each department might have their own website as part of the same install. And so you have a common group of users across all of those sites. And in the past, we didn't provide very good tooling support for those folks to be able to migrate from one site to the next. Basically, you had to register for every site as an independent unit, and that was very cumbersome. Another scenario where these site groups are interesting is around microsites. So we have a lot of companies that are doing marketing promotions for specific brands, and they typically have an administrator or a marketing person in their organization that's managing the content on each of these microsites. And again, that person would have to register for every microsite, which was a very cumbersome process. So we introduced a notion of site groups, which allows you to group sites together so that basically the framework knows that if you're a member of one of those sites, then you should have access to all of the sites. And this is paired with a single sign-on capability. So as long as you're using subdomains and the authentication capabilities work with subdomains, then you can sign into one of the sites and then migrate to one of the other sites in the group, and you stay logged in. So this is just way more efficient way to interact with the software, especially when you're dealing with many sites. And we see a lot of opportunity with sites groups going forward in terms of also being able to share security roles across sites, share content across sites, and we'll talk a bit about that as we go forward. We also focused on performance in .NET 6.1. So in .NET 6.0, we overhauled the user experience. As part of that overhaul, we introduced a lot of client-side capability. So we were pushing a lot of stuff down to the browser, more than we ever had in the past. That provided a really great user experience, but it also increased the amount of payload that was being pushed down to the browser. So what we did in .NET 6.1 is we took advantage of an open source component, a client resource manager, which basically groups together requests for common types of resources. So for example, if you have a lot of CSS on a page, it'll group together that CSS into a single request. If you have a lot of JavaScript on a page, it'll group that together into a single request. And so we took the number of requests in a given page down by, I think, a factor of 10. It went from I don't have the exact numbers, but it was a significant increase or decrease in the amount of client requests. And in fact, if you have this enabled, which it actually isn't enabled by default for upgrade reasons in .NET 6.1, but it's very simple to enable it. And once you enable it, you can achieve up to a 70% increase in performance of your website. So this is definitely a great feature. We're going to be doing some tweaking around this to improve it in the future, but it was a great step. Paired with our user experience improvements in 6.0, coupled with the performance improvements in 6.1, again, we're just investing a lot of effort into making sure that the platform is as usable as possible. So that brings us up to the road ahead. So the future is very bright. We've got a lot of interesting things which I'm going to share with you this morning. So in terms of our philosophy, we embrace the ancient Chinese philosophy of yin and yang. Essentially, yin and yang are two opposing forces which work together in a symbiotic way to produce a harmonious result. When we look at yin and yang in the context of .NET Nuke, we have an interesting model. We have an open source project, but then we also have a commercial product that's built on top of it. So we have yin and yang. Both of these things can be seen to be somewhat opposing, but they are actually deeply connected with one another and are actually essential to the survival of each other. So when we look at our free user base and our paying customers, we absolutely have to have a free user base. We have to have a great community edition product because we want to ensure that we have the maximum number of people that are using our platform as possible. But then we have business users that have more elaborate needs, more sophisticated needs. And for those folks, we need to have a product with extra functionality for them. They obviously provide the revenue, which then gets invested back into the community edition. So again, this is a very balanced approach, and it's an approach that seems to be working well for us in terms of building a scalable business and producing a great product. We are a web framework, which developers use to build web applications on top of. And in fact, we have a content management system, which is built on top of that web framework. And that content management system is a business solution. Again, we have sort of two focuses here, which we have to, they are synergistic in terms of the fact that they work well together, but they also require two distinct areas of focus in terms of building the framework and building out the business solution. We cater to both developers and business users. Again, these folks have different needs. They're different groups of stakeholders. We need to view them in terms of what their specific needs are and deliver solutions to them. On the extensions side, we've always had a great extensions ecosystem. We have a Forge, which provides access to free open source extensions to the platform, and we also have a store, which provides access to commercial extensions. So you can see this yin-yang philosophy is represented in a variety of things we do, and sort of knowing what this philosophy is sometimes will allow you to view things that we introduce into the market in a different light, because you'll see that we're trying to embrace both sides of yin and yang in many of the things that we do. When we think of our product vision, and we think of the different themes, we see agility as probably the most fundamental theme today in the business world. Agility in the sense that businesses need to be able to adapt quickly to changes in the market. They need to get products out to market quickly. They need to be able to adapt. They need to be able to scale. And so we have a number of different capabilities around agility that we are going to be using as guiding principles as we build out our products in the future. If we start with usability, what does that mean? Well, essentially, .NET Nuke has to be very simple to install, and it has to be very simple to interact with, and so the user experience capabilities need to be superior, need to be great. Accessibility. This is basically the ability to use any device, anytime, anywhere to interact with the software. Scalability. As the needs of your business grow, you need to be able to grow your website infrastructure along with you. This is very closely tied with the cloud. Value. We need to be able to provide superior value for a very affordable price, and extensibility is again one of the foundations of our product, where we have a ton of extensions that are available today, but we need to continue to encourage the creation of more extensions as we go forward. If we look at the industry trends, we see the same trends this year that we saw last year. I mean, I think that last year when we identified cloud, mobile, social as themes, we were definitely on the right track, and because over the last year, these have certainly become very dominant trends, and they're all trends which are directly related to the .NET Nuke solution that we need to provide. So we look at the cloud. One thing that we recognized last year when we talked about the cloud is we were a little bit light on the details of what that meant in terms of the .NET solution. So when we think about the cloud, it's not just a feature. It's a new way of doing business. It is fundamental to the way that business is going to be done in the future. Essentially, the commoditization of infrastructure affects everything. So if we look at some of the different things that we do today, we have a content management system. We already have optimized it so that it's deployable on many different cloud platforms, including some of the public clouds as well as private clouds. We're offering hosted trials today in the cloud. We're going to be offering demo sites in the cloud in the future. And we're also going to be introducing in 2012 an on-demand offering on .NETNuke.com for our commercial CMS in the cloud. In the marketplace, we already made some steps in the marketplace to integrate it with our product, and so that integration happens online in real time in the cloud, and we're going to be adding improvements around that. And our web framework. We can envision a time in the future when developers are not just developing software applications locally on a desktop type of machine, but they will in fact be doing some of their development work in the cloud as well. So the cloud is going to be sort of a pervasive technology which affects everything that we do in the future, and we are going to embrace it wholeheartedly. The store. So the snow-covered store has existed in its current form for quite a number of years, and since we acquired it, we hadn't made any really fundamental changes to the look and feel. We are undergoing, or we have undertaken a significant upgrade of snow-covered, which has been going on over the past year. We expect that that's going to be delivered in the first quarter of 2012. This is an early look of what the new store is going to look like, a much more modern e-commerce experience, which we think is going to be great for the vendors that are producing extensions as well as consumers who want to purchase extensions. As far as the web application framework is concerned, DotNetNuke was originally more designed around the concept of being a web application framework than it was around being a CMS. We invested a lot in building a great platform. Obviously, the CMS was built on top of that platform. The whole notion of a framework is that, sure, if we use a construction analogy, yes, you could build a house using a hammer, nails, and sticks of lumber, but that is not the most efficient way to build a house. As technology has evolved, there's obviously more modern capabilities that you need to take advantage of when you build software, and this has also happened in the construction world where, I mean, you have modular homes now with prefabricated walls and prefabricated trusses for building roofs and things, and so we also have more advanced tools around nail guns and things like that as well. So when we look at the framework, we realize that we need to continue to invest in the framework. In recent years, we've put a lot of investment in the content management system aspect of our solution, but going forward, we do need to provide better tooling for developers so that they can build applications more efficiently than they have in the past. In terms of our current architecture, we address a very large horizontal market. We have our core platform, which is essentially our community edition. On top of that, we deliver Professional Edition. Professional Edition is a fully supported version of the DotNetNuke platform. And it also has some exclusive functionality in it, which is more applicable to more serious business scenarios. Some of the examples that we have today are around content approval and workflow. We have more granular permission support in the Professional Edition. We have document management solution, which we acquired a few years ago, and we've made a number of iterations to. And we have page caching, and we have a number of other capabilities that are exclusive to the Professional Edition today. In total, we refer to this as our professional solution that we offer today in the market. In mid-2010, we also introduced an Enterprise Edition. And this Enterprise Edition is built around scenarios which are more sophisticated in terms of customers that have more sophisticated architectures, more sophisticated environments that they need to operate in, more sophisticated governance around how they have to manage content. One of the early features we added, or the first feature we added in the Enterprise Edition, was the content staging capability. So basically, this is for organizations that need to manage their content in a staging environment, then do a review of it to make sure it's all appropriate before it actually gets pushed to a production environment. We did a version 1 of that solution in mid-2010, and we're going to be investing more there. We introduced a SharePoint connector. in .NET Nuke 6.0, which I've already covered. And in total, with these features, which you also get access to all of the Professional Edition functionality as well, we refer to this as our enterprise solution today. So this is our architecture that we've been building out, and this is the way that the .NET Nuke solution is going to look in the near term. But if we look towards the future, so moving forward, we're going to be taking a more solutions-oriented approach. So if we look at this diagram and we look at the bottom, we see that we still have our open source framework, our content management system. This is essentially Community Edition. And we also have a commercial platform built on top of that. That commercial platform will include a lot of the functionality that we have today in our Professional and Enterprise editions. On top of the commercial platform, we will be building business solutions that are more focused on delivering functionality to solve specific business problems. For example, if you're building an intranet, we can assemble a certain number of capabilities that would be typical in most intranet settings. Or if you're building an e-commerce website, we can build a solution around e-commerce, which would basically deliver everything you need. In each of these boxes where you see solution, rather than thinking of them as like a single module, most likely they would be comprised of multiple modules that all work together in a synergistic way. Very likely they would also have a template and a skin that go along with them. And so when you install these solutions, you get a turnkey solution to solve your business problem, which is much different than we have today. When you utilize the .NET Nuke platform today, we give you a lot of tools that you can utilize to build a website, but you have to do a fair bit of configuration to put them all together in a way that makes sense. So we'll be taking a lot of that headache away from you and providing you with much richer, more robust solutions going forward. So if we talk about .NET Nuke for 2012 and what we're going to be focusing on from a product perspective, and keeping in the spirit of cloud, mobile, and social. Obviously, social is the next area for us to tackle. So social collaboration is a big area. When we acquired the Active Modules IP around Active Social and Active Forums, there's a lot of great functionality there. We could have taken the simple approach and just integrated those as the modules that they already were, but we wanted to actually provide much deeper integration for social capabilities in the platform. And so in 2012, we're going to be tackling the integration of Active Social into the platform as a first-class citizen, and not as a module, but basically as a part of our underlying framework and platform. We're going to have a couple of releases where we think it's going to be required, it's going to take a couple of releases to integrate all of this functionality in the social area. And so we're probably going to have a release sometime in Q2 of 2012 and in Q4 of 2012. And again, the theme for those releases is all going to be around social collaboration. If we look at a little bit deeper at some of the features that we're considering for the roadmap going forward for 2012, we've obviously got social collaboration and publishing. So we're going to be obviously incorporating much of the IP that we acquired from the Active Modules acquisition, but we're also going to be adding additional social functionality to that as well. And there's some interesting things on the roadmap around that, around social publishing and around social analytics and areas like that. From a marketing perspective, we know that we could make some improvements around URL management and search engine optimization, and we want to make some investments there to make that capability of our platform much better. Cross-site content sharing is a topic which came up in the context of our mobile solution when we were developing it. But as we've talked to more customers, we've realized that this is a much broader platform capability that people want to be able to take advantage of. So cross-site content sharing is the notion that you have content on one of your websites in your installation, and this is applicable to scenarios where you have multiple sites, and you want to expose that same content on some of the other sites that are part of your installation. So this is applicable in both mobile scenarios as well as desktop scenarios, and this would really help improve some of the productivity benefits of our platform, because today you actually have to copy content from one site to another. It's a little bit inefficient. So if you could share that same content on many different sites within your install, it would provide a lot more rich capability. The document library module that we acquired from Xipient a few years ago has received some attention in recent years in terms of making it consistent with our user interface styles that were introduced in .NET Nuke 6. But One of the things that we're going to be tackling is integrating it as a first-class citizen with the rest of the folder infrastructure that's part of DotNetNuke. Today, the document library stores its documents in a completely separate location as the rest of the files, and we want to make it one integrated experience. So document library going forward is going to be able to take advantage of the folder providers so that you can store your documents in the cloud if you so desire. It's going to take advantage of the permissions model that are part of our regular folders rather than having its own permission model. And so it's going to be a completely integrated solution around document management. When we introduced SharePoint, in DotNetNuke 6.0, it was focused on SharePoint 2007. And that was because SharePoint 2007 was the most dominant version of SharePoint that was being deployed. And in fact, SharePoint is still the most dominant version of SharePoint that's out there in the market. But with the availability of SharePoint 2010, there's obviously a lot of folks that are looking to upgrade to 2010, and we need to have a solution around SharePoint 2010 as well. So we're going to be making an investment there to provide document synchronization for SharePoint 2010, and we're also looking at providing capabilities around list synchronization as well. So when you're using SharePoint lists in SharePoint, you should be able to expose that information and make it available in DotNetNuke as well. So we're looking at providing improvements there. Content staging, like I said, we had a version 1 probably about 18 months ago. We've acquired a lot of feedback over the last 18 months in terms of how people want to utilize that solution more effectively, what modifications we could make to it to make it more effective. And so we're going to be adding some additional capabilities there. And from a developer perspective, and this might be interesting because there's a lot of developers here today, we're looking at the fact that DotNetNuke as a framework does have an open API today, but it's open only in the sense that you can build web applications that take advantage of that API. So what we would like to do is open up that API even more so that you could build other types of applications using that API. So if we put a service layer around the DotNetNuke framework and made those methods available over a web service interface, it would allow you to build applications for the desktop. It would allow you to build applications for mobile devices. It would allow you to do a lot more with the very rich framework that we have already just by opening it up over a RESTful web interface. And so we think that this is something that will generate a lot of additional interest in the platform and a lot of new opportunities for people who are building applications on top of the platform. And with that, I'm going to move over to doing a demo now of DotNetNuke 6.1. And my computer went into sleep mode. Recognizing it. So there we go. All right. Thank you. What I have here is a default installation of .NET 6.1. It's the Professional Edition. The Professional Edition provides access to a lot of the management user interfaces around managing mobile websites. So if I go ahead and I log in, I'm going to log in as the host user of this site. So if I log in as the host user, I'm going to be able to get access to some of the mobile management capabilities as part of the platform. Obviously, this is taking advantage of a lot of the great user experience improvements as part of .NET 6. So the first thing I'm going to show you is in the site management area, which is formerly what we called portals. If we go into the site management area, we can see that I actually have created a couple of sites here. We have the default desktop website, which is created as part of the install, and I've already created a mobile site. The capability for creating a mobile site is pretty simple. So if we go into the Manage thing and we go into Add New Site, we get our familiar interface for adding a new site to our system. And we look at the template area, we have a mobile website template, which is provided now. So it's as simple as just choosing that template and then creating a site. And that, when you create that site, it's actually going to create a mobile website using a lot of advanced capabilities such as HTML5, CSS, and adaptive rendering, which I'll show you in a minute. So if we go into the admin area for this particular site, I can show you our site redirection management capabilities. So if we go in here, we have a couple of different options that we can choose. I've already gone ahead and created a very simple redirection rule using the Create a Mobile Website redirection option, because this is the most common thing that people are going to want to do when they're creating a mobile website. If I go in and I edit that capability, I can see some of the different options that we have available around redirection. So I have a redirection rule which is called my default redirect, and I can redirect so all requests that are going to my home page of my website from a mobile device, I can redirect them to a particular location. I have the ability to redirect them to a site that's part of my install. In this case, I'm redirecting it to my Awesome Cycles mobile site, or I could redirect to a page in my site or an external URL if I so desire. So you have a lot of very rich capabilities here that you could take advantage of when you're doing redirections. We also have even more advanced redirections if you choose the advanced option. So by default, I had a redirection rule which was set just for mobile phones. So any mobile phones that visit my website are going to be, and they hit my home page, they're going to be automatically redirected to my mobile site. If I choose the advanced option, we have a ton of capabilities that are exposed. So you can choose many different characteristics of mobile devices, and you can choose a matching value that you want to match on, and then you can get very granular around how you redirect your traffic that's coming from mobile devices. So if you want to have a specific landing page that you send people to for promotions for coming from a tablet, for example, you can do that very easily with some of the advanced rules. So if I cancel, I'm going to move over to the mobile site that I actually created. So this is my Awesome Cycles default mobile site using the default template. It has some default content in it, just like we have for our desktop website default template. It's got a variety of information that's displayed, very similar to the Awesome Cycles desktop site. So we've got products and services, but in this case, the content is more optimized for the display characteristics of a mobile device. And so since I'm logged in as the host user, I can drop down in my mode, and we now have a new mode option called Preview. And this is the previewer that I talked about earlier in my presentation. So if I go into Preview, we have device characteristics for many different devices. And I can take a look at what my site might look like in each of those devices. So if I choose, let's say, the iPhone 4, I can see that my site is going to look a particular way, and it actually, the navigation that's displayed on my site is going to be optimized for that device. So rather than having a horizontal menu, I now have a menu option that's displayed, and when I tap that, it's going to expand that in a vertical way because that's more appropriate for an iPhone device. If I choose an iPad, we can see that because an iPad has a much larger display surface available, it's actually going to render my menu in a horizontal manner automatically. So it takes advantage of adaptive rendering techniques to take advantage of the characteristics of the device. And so what I'd like to do right now is switch over to my to a tablet where I'm going to show you an actual .NETNuke 6.1 website that's been developed for the .NETNuke World site. So this website was created using .NETNuke 6.1, and it takes advantage of a lot of the capabilities that are part of our template. So if I view this website in a portrait mode, we can see it appears in a certain manner, and if I turn the device, we can see that it adapts and stretches across into landscape mode. If I choose the schedule option, we have our schedule online. I can tap, and I can choose to expand, and I can see all of the different sessions that are available today. Using a touch interface, I can collapse that, and I can expand the events that are going on for Friday. If I move over, I can see our Twitter feed that's going on right now. So there's a lot of activity that's going on Twitter, which is great. If I look at photos, we can see some of the photos that were posted from yesterday in a very rich manner with pop-ups and everything, all taking advantage of this this is an iPad tablet. So I mean, you can build very rich mobile websites using .NETNuke 6.1 and then expose them and manage the devices that are coming to those sites so that you can provide an optimal user experience. And with that, We're going to open it up for questions.
I don't know that we have time.
Okay.
You went a little long.
Okay.
It's all right.
So,
thank you, Shaun.
all right. Thank you.
So we had intended to have time for questions, but Shaun loves to talk about .NETNuke World, or .NETNuke. So we are going to be around for a while. We do have a little bit of a surprise for Shaun. And I wanted to, before you leave, I wanted to announce that we have an incentive. Do you have the clicker?
Yeah.
There we go. We have an incentive for participation at the conference, and we decided to do something fun this year. And for the first time, we have a limited edition Shaun Walker bobblehead doll. And
I have that outfit here.
we faithfully reproduced the T-shirt, the puka shells, the shorts, and this, you have to understand, this is how we deal with Shaun almost every day. So anyway, the good news is that we have 50 of these.
Nice.
Right. All right, do the math. There's 400 of you. And by the way, for you folks online, this is a huge incentive because next year we're going to have another surprise. And the only way to get this is you must be present. So there's only 50 of these. There's 400 of you. And what we're going to be doing is that the folks with the .NETNuke shirts on are going to be awarding these to people, the best presenters, the best comments, the best questions, the best tweets, the best responses on our feedback forms, our survey forms. And when they're gone, they're gone. They're a limited edition item. And if I see any of these bad boys on eBay later, we know who you are. But anyway, I thought it was only fair to award Shaun the first one.
Thanks, Mitch. You know what's funny? Is I brought this exact outfit in my suitcase. So I'll be wearing it, I think, sometime during this conference.
Right. I saw Shaun's wedding pictures, and that is what he was wearing. All right. I think we're out of time. We've got a short break between now and the track starting the next sessions. Enjoy the conference, have fun, and continue to give us the feedback. Thank you.
Thanks.